brothers giving him a special message based upon the comments from the Fab Five documentary directed at Christian Laettner. That is an obscure reference. As somebody who likes rattling off obscure references from time to time that maybe two people will get, that one's very obscure. I would have never made the connection that they were doing a Fab Five bit crapping on Christian Laettner.
No, exactly right. I mean, it's like one of those where this generation, they don't even know what the Fab Five is. I mean, they weren't even born then. Like, it's so. I'm with you there. That's a little bit reach. I mean, that's certainly not Los Angeles Chargers social media. I could tell you that they wouldn't do that.
It makes you wonder whether or not the brothers saw that whenever they saw it and realized this describes Drake perfectly. So this is going to be our thing. We're just going to do this over and over again. But regardless, Drake Maye, it's worked out so well. He goes from North Carolina to New England as the third overall pick in the draft. And it was a guy who can throw some bombs.
What?
Joe Milton III, fifth quarterback on the roster, but they drafted him. Let's hear from Jerod Mayo, the head coach of the Patriots, on this decision to make Joe Milton III one of the day 3 draft picks.
We're in the business of trying to get good football players through the door, and Milton happens to be one of them. Obviously, he understands we took a quarterback at 3 at Drake. One thing that we preach is competition. Everything's about competition and nothing is given. All of it's earned, and that's how we thought about the process.
Do you envision keeping 5 players on the roster throughout this offseason, or is this a scenario where you could move someone?
Well, that's yet to be seen. At this current time, we're still on the phone right now, with potential, free agents coming up here soon. So we'll see how all the dominoes kind of play out. But at the same time, you want to have a strong group. You want to have a strong room. And I would say the way it looks now, we have a very strong room.
They already had Jacoby Brissett and Bailey Zappi and Nathan Rourke. They had Drake Maye and Joe Milton III. And I talked earlier about the RG3 Kirk Cousins dynamic from 2012.
Yeah.
There's a lot of speculation out there that the coaching staff and the front office was squeezed to take a quarterback third overall by ownership.
Right.
So are there parallels there where Joe Milton III is the football operations pick and maybe he's the guy who's going to be the fail-safe, the stopgap, the guy who is ready to go if Drake Maye just doesn't work out?
Well, he's raw, just like Drake Maye, right? It's going to take a little work, right? But there is them qualities about Joe Milton, and Pete will tell you this. And Mike, I know we didn't really dive into this, but if there was a quarterback I was going to take mid-rounds of the draft, later rounds of the draft, to me it would have been Joe Milton. Joe Milton is the only other guy in the draft that if you watched his highlights, you'd go, whoa, that's as good a throw as any. That's Caleb Williams type throw. That's that's a top pick of the draft type throw. Now, it's not consistent, and there's things that got to be worked on there, but he's big, he's an athlete, and he's one of these guys in the mid-rounds where would I be shocked 3 or 4 years from now? I go, whoa, he's got a chance to be a starter for this team. And we talk about it all the time. I mean, first off, Drake Maye, we know, has got raw and got issues too, right? I mean, by all due accounts, there's a few teams that fell in love with Drake Maye, and everybody else was a little bit like, he's got some things to work on, I don't know, blah, 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 right? And now you're going to have the pressure, kind of like we talked about with Pennick and Kirk Cousins, to a point where, I mean, he's going to have a guy out there every day that's certainly going to go, wow, Drake Maye's arm's strong, but it's not Joe Milton. Look at Joe Milton. Look at that. I mean, it's certainly going to put him on alert and make things a little interesting there in New England, Mike. No doubt about that.
How far can Joe throw an orange? That is a long that is a long way to throw an orange. He threw it completely off the field. Good Lord.
I mean, good luck, Drake. He's famous for this. I mean, again, you see some of his throws. Is of course playing quarterback. It's impressive.
100 yards.
You see him?
He killed the orange.
Right. I mean, you see him at the Manning Academy last year, right? I mean, he was the guy. They were like, all right, make everybody go, whoa, hey Joe, get up here and throw a bomb. I mean, so there's that type of talent here. Now it's just, yes, he's got to keep playing and growing into being a quarterback, but there's some tools and some skills there that are definitely going to open up some eyes there in New England.
And there's also the question, because of the size, will he play a different position? Gerard Mayo said, let's get the pads on before we make those decisions. Milton himself said, that's never happening. I'm never moving to tight end. He's all in at quarterback.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not nearly the same as Cousins and Penix, but you've got Drake Maye, who's golden child. It's handed to him. He's the future. He's the present, maybe. But then you got Joe Milton, like, okay, let's see. I'm going to go do my thing. I'm going to bust my ass. I'm going to do everything I can. I mean, look at what Tom Brady did. That's what, anytime you have, a later round quarterback in New England with a guy who's the presumed guy, you're always going to keep an eye on what that guy does. We've already seen the formula play out there. He comes in and busts his ass and develops the way you say he needs to develop. If he can do that, when you've got that kind of an arm,
yeah,
if you can figure out all the rest of it and you're willing to put in the time and the effort to do it, yeah, step aside Drake Maye. Joe Milton's the quarterback of this team. So, and look, I know it's glass half full and 6 quarterbacks and 12 picks, and they could all be great. Or it could be like 2021, where 5 of them are picked in the top 15, 4 of them are gone, and 1 is jury's still out on what he's going to be. So, I always feel, not that I feel bad for a guy to be a first-round pick, but there's so much expectation. There's so much more pressure to be able to slip into the NFL and work on your craft and make some mistakes and trial and error and without anyone paying attention. Everything Drake Maye does is going to be scrutinized.
Yeah.
With Joe Milton, he can just kind of take his time.
Yeah, that's right.
And
no expectations.
Well, look at that. Maybe we wasted that 6th round pick. Well, no, that never happens. Once you get beyond round 1 or 2, you're able to just kind of do your thing and get toward your ceiling, and then all of a sudden you're out there on the field. Tony Romo, same. He was undrafted. Nobody knew who Tony Romo was until he played. Then, hey, Tony Romo, look what we found. So that's good for any of these guys that went later, but Joe Milton especially. You throw that orange 100 yards and squash it. Of course, if it travels that far, it's probably going to squash.
Yeah.
That's a hell of an arm. That's a hell of an arm.
Yeah, he's a hell of a specimen. He can move. He's big. He's got some developing to do. They both got developing to do. With that pick too, yeah, I think that just pretty much solidifies Jacoby Brissett's going to be their starting quarterback this year, and they're going to let Drake Maye have a year on the sideline and let him develop and hopefully fix some of the mechanical issues he has, and we'll see where it goes from there. But me, that was not my favorite pick of the draft, right? Just like we talked about Atlanta, all these things, blah, 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 assets, pick number 8, right? Guy that has mechanical issues, is raw, we need him to sit a few years. That's pick 23, not pick 3. Right? It's like Jordan Love. That's what we're talking about here. And that, to me, is where it does not make sense at all to me with that pick.
And they're embracing the competition, and it's just kind of odd. Gerard Mayo asked about 5 quarterbacks on the roster. It's like, well, and now we can sign more in free agency. Well, at some point they have to have their final 53-man roster. I wonder how many they're going to carry. I assume that, Nathan Rourke, obviously, first man out. Bailey Zappi, happy birthday on social media, which means goodbye on the roster. And it's going to be May, it's going to be Brissett, and it's going to be Milton when it's all said and done.
Right. Maybe 4. Maybe there's something there where they have a Bailey Zappi on the practice squad or one of them on the practice squad that way, right? But I could see 4 being there. Maybe 3 on the active roster, 1 on practice squad, something like that. I wouldn't be shocked, right? Because I don't know how comfortable they're going to feel about a guy like Drake Maye or Milton being the actual backup, right? They're raw to your point there. You want them to be able to sit and not have to worry too much, like kind of what you were saying about Joe Milton being the 6th round pick. I think ultimately they'd like that for Drake Maye. And I think probably still they're probably going, we'd probably prefer Bailey Zappi be the backup if we got to, it's week 4 and Jacoby Brissett gets hurt right there. And then maybe they reevaluate where Drake Maye can have a full week of practice and then he could be that guy. But, I think they'd be a little bit worried about that right now with all the rawness we talk in Drake Maye.
You just have to be careful about who you put on the practice squad because they can, in theory, sign with other teams.
Right.
But this year, they are allowing that 3rd quarterback to come up from the practice squad.
Yeah.
and B. See, what they could do, they could keep Maye, Brissett, and Milton on the 53-man roster, bring Zappe up, and make him the emergency third quarterback.
Yeah, right.
Even though you already have Joe Milton on the 53-man roster. That's what the Patriots could do. Something they also did, good Lord, 8 draft picks, and they only used 1 on defense, which just shows you how much work the Patriots need to do offensively to try to turn this thing around. And just generally, points are down. Everybody wants to score points. Everybody knows that's how you win games. Yeah, defense wins championships, but offense gets you in a position to have a defense that'll help you win a championship. Hi, it's Mike Florio. Thanks for watching PFT on YouTube. Hit subscribe for the latest news and analysis from Pro Football Talk.